I just watched Kirk Franklin little short story short film on YouTube. Whew, I was tearing up. I definitely was tearing up. So Kirk Franklin on his YouTube channel, he has a short film, like 35 minutes long, I believe. It's called Father's Day, a Kirk Franklin story. And it basically talks about, honestly, I would rather it been like an hour to get more deep, in details. Excuse me, it's time for me to go to bed, but I had to share this with y'all. This was so damn good. For 35 minutes, I wanted more, and I felt like it was rushed. So it was broken up into three different parts. And first part, Genesis, Revelation, and whatever. But the first part, he talks a little bit about he was 4 years old when he was adopted by this 64-year-old woman named Gertrude. You already know I was here for it because, that was my grandmother's name, my Gerda May. So Gertrude, and grew up black and poor, and she didn't have any kids, and his mama only came once, twice, or three times a year, not a month, once or twice a year to visit. And it's like, what's the point? Stay away, because every time you come, I'm gonna want to go with you. Like, why are you doing this to me? And never knew who his father was or anything like that. But it wasn't like, I feel like it should have been more detail. Maybe we could have interviewed the mom, even though she's trifling as fuck anyway. So his auntie, his biological auntie, his mother's sister, passed away. He was told about it, and one of the girls that sings with him, that he's known ever since they were little too, her name is Melanie or whatever. She went to the funeral, and I don't know if she tried to encourage him, but it's a rumor that started going on because this man named Rick told somebody else at the funeral, like, yo, I used to date Deborah or whatever. So everybody started getting the buzzing, like looking at him like, yo, that's Kirk's father. So he said looking at the ears, the earlobes, and everything like that. I'm like, Lord. So that became a rumor. So she calls him and leaves a message, and they played a voice message. She's like, hey, if you want to do something about this rumor or whatever, it's not true. One thing I told you, I never lie to you. Meanwhile, she's still motherfucking lying. So Rick heard around town that also about the rumor, so he gets DNA. He not gets DNA tested, but he gives them DNA, what his code is, whatever the case may be. So he said, "This is for you. You can do whatever you want to do with it. I'm here for you." Yo, Rick is the fucking man right there, right? So Kirk does the DNA test. He's like, "Fuck it, I'll do the DNA test as well." Why Rick is his father. His physician calls him and tells him 99.9999%. And he is wilding. He's like, what? What? Because he has already buried the man that he thought was his father. He buried him. And I think he said 2017. He died of cancer. He got an anonymous phone call saying that your dad has cancer. And he went to visit him and everything. And when he told him, like, yo, about not growing up with a father, he really didn't have that to say. He really didn't have anything to say, but like, I know you feel that way. And he buried his father. Now to come find out that his father's not dead. And check this out. The father lives down the block from the recording studio. His recording studio. In Texas, I guess. That's where he goes and records. Down the block for his recording studio. What I want to know is, how did Mama Deborah fuck up the bag? Because when Kurt pull up to the house, he's a little affluent man. I know it's the South, but that house was gorgeous. That house was absolutely gorgeous. And, he reached out to him, And he shows him the DNA test. And then Mr. Rick, he loses it. He start crying. And Kirk asked him questions like, you didn't hear about this young girl, whatever, because I guess the small little town they're from is really small. So he was like, if I would have known, I would have been there. You would have known. I would have known about you. I didn't hear, it was no rumor about her being pregnant or anything. She must have kept it hidden or something. And it makes sense that she probably kept it hidden because she didn't know who the daddy was. That's what the fuck it was. And that's why she be like, listen, I don't know who your daddy is, so you go over there with Miss Gertrude. Trifling. And so Mr. Rick is crying. He is crying and crying. And he's like, I gotta like he walks off camera and Kurt is like, come on, man, come on. And Kurt is like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. It might not be a good one. And he wants to hug him. And Kurt doesn't even know how to hug him because he doesn't even know how. It's just, it is sad all around. It is so freaking sad all around. And after hearing the news or whatever, he's just like, ugh. So he set up a meeting the same day to meet with his mother. Not his mother, Deborah. Now his auntie, he calls his auntie. I guess he has auntie number, like Sharon or Cheryl. He was like Sharon, and he calls like Sharon. She was like, "Who you want to speak to?" And he's like, "Auntie Sharon." She's like, "Okay, bitch. I don't know you. Like your name is Sharon, just like your sister name is Deborah, and that is Mr. Rick. Who I just found out was my father. Like, lady, if you don't take your little high yellow ass somewhere, child." So he pulls up to the house, right? And he was like, I need you to sign a paper. And I guess it's like a release probably to put it in the whole film. What he's like, I need you to sign the paper first, okay, Auntie Sharon, whatever her name is. And she was like, oh, okay. But he was like, is Deborah here or and she was like, no, she not here yet. And he's like, well, do you mind, Auntie, if it's okay that I come when she comes? She was like, oh, okay. And it's like he closes the door of his car and he's like, it's like I'm a 10-year-old boy all over again. I feel like a 10-year-old boy and I'm 53 years old. And I'm like, wow. So they go to the mama come, they send across from each other with auntie all up in the business. And, they get the DNA test and mama laughing. And he looking crazy. She looking crazy. Like, she was like, I don't know what they did, but it ain't right. So now somebody manipulate the DNA test. 99.99%. That's what his physician said. You think you that 1%, mama? Deborah, get your ass out of here, please. Ugh, trifling to the end, yo. So he said that was the time that he needs to just be alone. He was by himself walking the street. Of course, his security was driving behind him. But just imagine finding that the man that you knew to be your father is dead and gone buried. Realizing that your father is actually alive and he lives down the block from a studio that you record at all the time. He even said something about Carry On. That's his other, his son that he has the public issue with. Sorry, my phone died. Yeah, that Carry On used to play in a house across the street from his house. So it was just like he was so close and he was expressing how much he needed that. And he wasn't there wanting a father and upset and pissed off at the man that he thought was his father wasn't even there. It's just the abandonment issues I'm sure Kirk Franklin have is fucking ridiculous. He said that he said there's a reason why he's his therapist, his doctor, his therapist longest patient. He's been in therapy for 10 plus years, I think he said, and it still doesn't feel like he's still the most insecure man. He's one of the most insecure men, he said, in the room. And he's a line that he said, let me say something. Say what you want about Kirk Franklin. He don't sing. But man, that Christian pen, them lyrics, he said something about I trade all my trophies, awards in to be somebody's son. Like bars. Kirk got bars. And so in the process of him, finding all this information out, he is recording an album, and yeah, he's recording an album, and it's called Father's Day, and it's gonna be released sometime in October. But it's basically talking about that whole situation and stuff like that, and his own issues. His strained relationship with his son. I think that's his old Carry On is his oldest son or whatever. They had a real public feud, and they haven't seen or talked to each other in 2 years. So he goes, okay, so Miss Deborah, she was Deborah because Deborah's the other spelling. So she wants, at request, she wants another DNA test, and she wants to be present. So they all do the DNA test, right? They all up in a room. Mr. Rick got Mrs. Rick, she's there, Auntie and Deborah and Kirk. The results come 99.99. And he said, Rick is so fucking supportive. It's ridiculous. He just found out he had a 53-year-old son, and he's the most supportive man I ever seen in my damn life. He was like, I'm here for you. I want to meet everybody that comes with you. I'm here, but this is only at your pace because we're here for you. I'm here for you. This is how you. This man right here. That's a good man, Savannah. He's at your pace because this is for you, and he's hugging him, and he hugs him. Now, by this time, Kurt has learned to hug him because this is like 2 months later after the original results. So Kurt's like, what do you have to say? She still talk about it's a lie. She's still holding on to a lie. This lady is trifling as fuck, yo. Oh my God, she's trifling. So, so she's dead. So of course, Auntie Sharon, twisted mouth said, she was like, he just want to know the truth. It's saying that his father. She was like, I know, but it's a lie. So he said to her, listen, no, I love you, no hug, no sugar. That was some real down south. He said no sugar, and on the closed caption it says sugar, SUGA, no sugar. If you're not able to tell me the truth, you will not be in my I won't. This is it. And she started busting out crying, talk about I want my son. I've been waiting for my son to come back to me and all this other bullshit. You lying. You sitting up there lying. Just say you didn't know who the fuck, you didn't know who his daddy was. Just don't pin it on Mr. I can't remember his name, the one, God bless the dead. I can't remember who he thought his father was who passed away of cancer. But just tell him, lady, you, two tests, come on. Come on, Miss Deborah, stop playing with this man. They walk off or whatever the case may be. A little bit fast forward, Carry On. He reaches out to Carry On to tell him. He's like, I think he deserves to know because that's his granddaddy. Cool. But I'm glad this prompted him to reach out to his son. Now, I know how disrespectful and disgusting Carry On was or whatever. But at the end of the day, I feel like dad should make, or parents should make the effort to bridge the gap, right? So Carry On, soon as he came up in there like a little sexy cowboy, and he was ready for the shits. He was absolutely ready for the shits. And he was on some bullshit, sitting up, looking at him crazy, and he showed him the video of Kirk when he found out his doctor told him, that's his father. And then he started crying, and he said, "This is all I needed to know, have my dad, now have a granddad, and all this other stuff." So I'm hoping this fixes their relationship, because Carry On was hurting. He couldn't hold it no more. He tried. He really tried. And it was really good. And he's like, "I hope I can be around my son, talk to him more, rub his face more, and stuff like that, and get his ass off the Bad Boys on Zeus Network." And I believe that's good. And at the end, they put up, like the ending of Real Housewives. He said he's building a relationship with Rick, and Rick is going at Kirk's pace, however Kirk wanted, which I think is absolutely great. The mama's still denying is wrong or whatever, and he hasn't spoken to her since the second DNA test. I don't know if he's talking to Auntie. Him and Carry On are talking more, trying to build their relation back up. And he's dropping this album. I might go get that. I need some spiritual healing, because I got my daddy issues. This was deep. I didn't even know Kurt was going through all of this. And okay, what I did forget, with his childhood, growing up by himself, the only person he used to talk to, he used to climb up on the roof of the tiny house, Miss Gertrude tiny house, and talk to God. Same thing. The only other connection he had was that piano. She had a small little piano in the front of the house, and that was his connection to music. That was the only friend he had. He was getting beat up and bullied and all this other stuff. Poor, broke. He even told his mama at the when they revealed the second DNA test, he was like, "We were broke. We didn't have no money. We didn't have food." He said, "I remember going to the pawn shop and pawning Miss Gertrude's lawnmower type shit." And it's like, where the fuck were you, bitch? Basically, he ain't gonna say that, but I'ma say, where were you, Deborah? Deborah, where were you at? Where you was at, Auntie? You had the nerve to want somebody to call you Auntie. Bitch, I don't know you. Ugh, I can't. Just because you are an elder, nah. Why should I respect you? You know who I was. Never in your life have you reached out. And if she did, she didn't. It wasn't said that she had reached out. That's why I feel like it should be longer, because I want to hear everybody's individual story and then piece the story together myself. Even though I believe everything that Kurt is saying, but I want to hear more of Auntie Lies, and why the fuck wasn't she around, and why your nephew was over there starving, and why the hell Mama pinned this baby on this guy, because he wasn't around either. It happens, Miss Deborah. It happens, I guess. But Lord, this was that was very emotional. Was it a little triggering for me? Yes, because I understand what Kirk is going through. Because now this guy thought this was his father, so why wasn't he around? It's always like, oh, your mama kept you away. In this case, the mama wasn't even there either, so he didn't have anybody. So I can imagine abandonment issues he really, really have. But anyway, y'all gotta go check that out. Father's Day, a Kirk Franklin story. It's real cute and short. You can run through it real quick, even though I think it'd have been a lot better if it was longer. But go check it out. It's on his YouTube channel. I think it dropped probably like a week ago, but I heard two people that I like, content creators that I love, talking about it. I'm like, oh, let me go see what's this about. And it had me in shambles. I was buckling. Lord, thank God I was laying down, but my knees was weak. Whew. But yeah, if you've seen it, let me know in the comments what you think about it. What you think about that trifling ass mama and auntie. What you think about Mr. Rick? That's a black king right there. And what you think about Kurt? Side note, Kurt is very drippy. Like he had a few cute little pieces. All his sneakers was fresh, laced up kind of tight, but he had on some Jordans. I saw some Pradas. I saw some little vintage Pumas. He had on Celine. He had on Burberry. Like he a little drippy. I mean, that's no surprise, but that little man could dress. But even when he had his like Tupac handkerchief tied around his head, yeah, Kurt's a little drippy. But yeah, let me know what you thought about it. Or go check that out. That's a must little see right there. If you on your break at work, go check that out down to the YouTube and let's discuss.